Let's get salty!
Everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and as all the Perils in Paradise cards have finally been revealed, we are going to go over and make a tier list through every legendary that will be coming out with Perils in Paradise, which does come out on July 23rd. We're going to be rating them S through F, S being like God tier auto-include, and F being unplayable garbage, or just probably not that good. Of course, we'll have a template link down in the description below, as well as our giveaway that is still going on for 2 regular pre-orders, 2 mega bundles out of my pocket for Perils in Paradise. To enter that giveaway, like and comment in the video. Link down in the description below, the one with that thumbnail over there. On Monday, we'll be announcing the winners, and if we hit another 1,000 subs by then, I will add another mega bundle. So hit that sub button, make me go broke. So let's take a look at what legendaries are going to break the game according to me, which I will never ever be wrong on. Starting off, we have AFK, a neutral legendary, 5 mana, 0/5. At the end of your turn, give all other friendly minions that didn't attack +2/+2. So you play this, you summon some other minions that turn, they didn't have rush or charge, they'll get a stat buff. Or you have minions on the board in general, you don't attack with them if they can, and then they'll get a buff. So it's a very snowbally minion, but it absolutely requires you to be ahead on board or summoning a bunch of stuff with it and then not attacking. It's really not proactive, really kind of just awkward, and it doesn't even buff herself, right? It buffs the other minions. I think this is one of the worst legendaries in a while. I don't think this sees play. Board is like so aggressive. If you're going to play for board, you got to do crazy things, and I don't think this really works out at all. I will start off with an F. I don't think that card will see much play at all. Next, we have our first tourist legendary. And if you're not aware of Perils in Paradise, if a card, let's say Arana here, says Priest Tourist, Demon Hunter can put this in their deck and then play any priest card from Perils in Paradise, not everything in general, but the cards from Perils in Paradise in their deck, excluding whatever legendary priest has that is a tourist there. The tourist can't go back and forth or anything like that. So this card will let you play priest cards from Perils in Paradise, and Arana Thrill Seeker is a 5 mana, 5/5. Damage your hero takes on your turn is redirected to random enemies. So like just damage you take, you know, face tanking with your weapon in a minion, you can go face fatigue damage. If this is on the board, it's basically the demon seed, right? Except of always going face, it will hit a random enemy, and it's a temporary effect. As long as it's alive, this works. But you could set up like a crazy, you know, fatigue mill deck where you play Arana and just take a bunch of fatigue damage, try and blow your opponent out, or just play like self-damaging cards like they do Shadow Spell and Priest. That could be quite good. I think all the tourist cards will probably see some play just for their deck building ability, and then the text on the card can just be upside, right? Like Baku and Gen, they were pretty good back in the day. They just gave you an upgraded hero power. These have like, you know, upgraded deck building plus a passive ability or whatever when you play it. I'll give it an A. I don't think it's like the strongest of the tourists, but it is definitely up there. And we have another one here in Buttons, the 5 mana, 5/5 undead Death Knight legendary. It's a shaman tourist. You can play shaman cards from Perils in Paradise. Battle Cry, draw a spell of each spell school. So there's a lot of good spell school cards coming from the set, and you're able to draw like your blood, your frost, your unholy cards. You can get some you know, fire spells from shaman and things like that. It's just a good little draw engine, plus you can play with those shaman cards. Just seems solid, seems like a good card. If you want to play any shaman cards, you're going to want to play Buttons, and yeah, a bit of card draw to go with it is pretty nice. I will give that another A. We have Carefree Cookie, the 3 mana 2/2 Murloc and Pirate for Shaman. It is a Demon Hunter tourist, so you can play Demon Hunter cards. After a friendly minion dies, summon a random minion that costs 1 more. So good with all like the patches style cards, the charge tokens, and get some 2-drops out of it, and you have a decent little board, trade things in, have them die, get some more, you know, stuff, some stats. Again, not bad, it's cheap, got the tribal stuff going for it. This is almost a card I could see seeing standalone play, you know, like an evolved shaman style card where you don't even care about Demon Hunter cards, but there's some pretty good Demon Hunter cards, so you're probably gonna want to play this. And again, I'll give this a higher of the A. I think this one is really darn strong, and look out for that one. We have the Caress Cabaret Story, 5 mana, 5/5 Shaman legendary. It's Naga, and while this is in your hand, you play 2 different spell schools to transform. So you'll combine 2 effects permanently onto this card that it can play. So if you play like an arcane spell, you could draw 2 cards. You play a fire spell, you could deal 6 damage to the enemy hero. Frost, you freeze 3 random enemy minions. Nature, you gain +2/+2 and taunt. Holy, restore 6 health to your hero. Shadow, you destroy 2 random enemy minions. And Fell, you deal 2 damage to all enemy minions as well. So really kind of cool controller style card. Can be some reach, it can be proactive stuff. It's just a really solid card. Really exciting to see how this plays out, especially playing all these different spell schools or generating other spell schools. I'll give it a B. I think it could slot into certain decks. I don't know how powerful it is, but I hope that it does see play, and the artwork is like S tier. I love the art on this card. So we have the Chillin' Vol'jin, a 3-mana 3/3 priest legendary. It's the Hunter Tourist, so you can play Hunter cards with Battle Cry. Choose 2 minions, swap their stats. So your opponent's got a big ass minion on the board, you got a little token, you can just swap them, like period, just whatever you want. You can set up your own combos with that. It's really good. It cannot target itself, so you need another minion on the board to switch with, but this is a card I could see seeing play without a single Hunter card. The effect is very strong, the minion is relatively cheap. I think this is an S tier legendary. I just see it as being very flexible, really good, and again, there are Hunter cards I do think you want to play, particularly the 1-drop synergies you got going on. I think it's one of the better tourist cards out there. We have Cruise Captain Lori, 4 or 7 mana, 4/5 pirate. It's a druid legendary with Battle Cry. Summon 2 random locations. We've seen a lot of really good locations this expansion, the reusable stuff, so that can be good. Very expensive for just 2 random locations you don't know will be working with your deck at all, and it's bad stats. There's not a lot of synergies going on. We know all the druid cards now. Not a lot of synergies going on with this. I guess in Warrior, since you can play this in Warrior, you could brand and get 4 locations, but overall, I'm gonna give it a C. I think it might, maybe the locations are just good enough because there's so many good ones now that, yeah, maybe you want to ramp into this and get some locations, but it is probably more like, it's really close to me of being a pretty weak card. We have Eliza Goreblade, the 4-mana 4/3 undead pirate. Deathlight legendary is a blood rune, a frost rune, and Death Rattle. For the rest of the game, your minions have +1 attack. So this dies every minion that's summoned from a Death Rattle, your hero power, period. It's like an aura effect. It cannot go away. It can't be silenced. Every minion you have has +1 attack, which is pretty good on like charge minions, rush minions, all that. You can stack this with like yodelers, your compounding effects, your mosh pits, and just start amplifying that. This is a card that's like, you really need to find this in your opening hand if your deck's built around it. Otherwise, a lot of these cards aren't going to work. I don't know. Like, this card single-handedly is very powerful, but will it be consistent enough for a deck that's built around it? Because without this, again, right, it's just not good enough. You really have to draw this, and there's no great tutor for it. I'm going to give it a B. I think it'll see play, but it's going to be one of those like super high win rate cards, but you have to find it, and maybe the rest of the deck won't be good enough to carry it. Or you just play for like an upside, like a Hell Yeah, right? Hell Yeah is just like in every Deathlight deck because it's just good. Why not? Maybe it's that type of deal. And of course it can go into Rainbow, but not double Unholy. The runes are really weird on it. Next we have Gorgon Zormu, the 3-mana 3/3 dragon and neutral legendary Battlecry. You get a 2-cost cheese that summons 3 1-cost minions. It upgrades each turn, so you could play this in Rogue, let's say on turn 3, prep the cheese, you get 3 1-drops. And every turn, that'll go from a 2-drop to a 3-drop to a 4-drop, and I believe it caps out at 10. So it's just a really good tempo card, really solid, can fit into like tons of different decks. There's a dragon, so like Dragon Druid, Dragon Priest. You can time the cheese in Zarimi, where you play your Zarimi reward, or like you play the extra turn, play the cheese, and get like 3 big minions to murder your opponent. Seems very good. Could slot into a ton of different decks. I'm giving this an S. I think this goes into a lot of stuff. Like, there really isn't a downside to it. And even just summoning 3 2-cost minions on the next turn, that's really solid, right? It's like kind of like Call to Arms. Obviously, you're not thinning your deck. It's totally random, so you can't build around it as much. But still, it just seems really, really good to me. Grifta, Trusted Vendor, 4 mana, 4/5 neutral legendary Battlecry. You discover an amazing amulet to give to both players. The enemy's version is a phony version, and there is a ton of different amulets, so you can't reliably get what you want, but you can like reduce the cost of all cards in your hand by 1, whereas your opponent will do that except for their spells, right? Like you get a bit more of an upside, like you'll take control of an enemy minion until the end of your turn. Theirs will only get 1 attacker. You could draw 3 cards for 1 mana, but your opponent will draw 3 cards but then discard 2 of them. So there's a bunch of them. The damage one's probably the scariest. 1 mana, deal 6. Your opponent can only do it to a minion, and you got cards like Sonya and Pip. It can lead to shenanigans, but again, you can't reliably get the specific one you want because there's so many, but they're all pretty good, and I think this card is going to pop up quite a bit. I'm giving it an A, especially look out for like Rogue and Sony shenanigans. It is pretty scary to me. Ham the Hungry, a 6 mana 3/3. Warrior Legendary, it's the Druid Tourist, so you get to play Druid cards, so you get to Rampant Warrior. It has Taunt. At the end of your turn, eat a minion, +2/+2, so kind of like a Mutinous, kind of like a Patchwork. It's not amazing on its own. It's like Disruption. It's probably good in the slower matchups, the more grindy stuff, helping fatigue. You can bring this back as well at Druid now. Can res your stuff, but overall it's S tier because you want to play Druid cards. They're Baroque for Warrior, and Ham has some additional upside in specific matchups, and that's pretty good. You're gonna get 6 mana 5/5 Taunt that might eat a valuable minion. It might just eat something that doesn't matter at all, which is like, you know, Nosferatu, right? That wasn't the most OP card in the world, and that was 2 mana destroy a card, but still, the fact you get to play Druid cards, and you might have some upside on top of that, yeah, that's S tier for me. We have Incendious, the 6 mana 2/10 elemental. At the end of your turn, you upgrade your eruptions and you shuffle 5 of them into your deck. Deal like 1 damage to all enemies, so basically right away it'll go to 2, and if it stays alive or you play another one somehow, I guess playing Priest mostly, it'll upgrade them further, so they'll go to like 3-4 damage. You draw those, that could be pretty good. Seems a bit slow. It is 6 mana deal 10, kind of, right? Over time, which can be valuable. I feel like a deck somewhere is going to utilize this. I just don't know where, but I'll give it a B, and I like the design of it, and I think the artwork's rad. I won't write it off, but I don't think it's at the power level of some of these other legendaries. We have King Tide, the Mage Legendary, 4 mana 4/4 Battlecry. Both player spells cost 5 until the end of your next turn. So you could play this on 4, cheat out a big spell for 5 mana the next turn. It could be like a Loatheb effect to your opponent. They have all cheap spells. They can't even play anything. Or they also have big spells and they get to play theirs first, and you get screwed by it. It's a weird one. It'll be a meta dependent one. It could just be Dustfall and Aviata all over again. I'm not sure, but I do think this could absolutely pop up in some like big spell mage deck that can use this a lot better than your opponent. So I'm not going to completely write it off, but it probably is going to end up down at C or F at the end of the day, but I'm going to write it a little bit higher than I probably should. We have Maestra, the Masked Merchant, 6 mana, 6/5 Rogue Legendary. It's the Warlock Tourist, so you can play Warlock cards there. Battlecry, discover a hero card from the past, from another class. So any old hero card that's not in standard right now, excluding the Galacrons. You cannot discover a Galacron. Other than that, they're all fair game, including Guff, which you can get now in Rogue, which is pretty terrifying. And it's just a decent card, right? Like you get to play Warlock cards, which have access to healing when, you know, the whole like play cards outside of your class, which is really good in Rogue. And there's also just weird shenanigans where your hero becomes another class, and then you can do like tests and like bounce around it like infinitely because those are now Rogue cards and you're not a Rogue, right? So I'm giving it an A. I think this can see play. Rogue's probably going to be doing more degen stuff than this, but I feel like all the tourist cards are pretty strong, and I do love the flavor of this one and what it can do. We have Mayor and the Manager. It's in the game right now. We know it's busted. It's an S, right? Getting those treasures, especially the wand, really good. It already got Splish Splash Welt banned from standard, and it's in like over 50% of decks. Absolute S tier legendary. We have Mista Vista, the Druid Legendary, 5 mana 5/5 Mage Tourist. Battlecry in 3 turns, replay every spell you've cast between now and then. So you play the new ramp spell, yippee. You play that twice and play Mista Vista, and you get to what, 19, 22 mana. Yay, right? Like there's some busted stuff. You can play the mage big spells, you can play your own stuff, res taunts. Who knows? And you can play mage cards. Again, I'm going to give it an A. I don't think it's super busted, one of the better tourists, but it certainly has the potential to do gross stuff. We have Narian, Soothe Fancy, 4-mana 4/4 Priest Legendary, Battle Cry, get 2 fortunes that are the copies of the top card in your deck. So basically get these spells added to your hand that are copies of what is currently the top deck in your deck. So you draw that card the next turn, it'll then transform into whatever the next draw will be. And it will retain any discounts, hand buffs, whatever effects. Such a good card. It's 4 mana, get 2 extra copies of a good card in your deck, and you can manipulate this in other ways. Super good. I think you're playing this in every priest deck, period, because why wouldn't you? There's really no reason not to, other than maybe hyper aggro. And Demon Hunter would love this card too. I just don't see any reason not to play this card in your deck. It just seems utterly ridiculous. One of the best legendaries I think Priest has ever had, and gets an absolute S from me. We have Party Planner Vona, a 6-mana 4/4 Warlock legendary. Battle Cry, if you've taken 8 damage on your turns, summon Ouroboros or whatever it's called, which is like a giant, like 8 mana, 8/8 taunt, which has Death Rattle. Give a minion in your hand, Death Rattle, summon this card, right? Ouroboros. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that, but super good card. Pain Warlock's already one of the best decks out there, and they're easily doing this by turn 6. You're easily taking 8, or you're tapping 4 times, but it's like, it's so easy to deal 8 damage to yourself. The only thing is like the Blood Trine, I don't believe counts, and things like that. Regardless, I don't know if that deck really wants his late game, right? And I don't know what other deck would really run it. I guess a slower Warlock that's just tapping and doing some self-damaging can run it too and just grind your opponent out. Obviously susceptible to like silence and stuff, but still at the end of the day, you're getting a 6 mana like 12/12 that can go potentially infinite with your minions in hand. I'll give it an A. It just seems like a really solid card. And again, Pain Warlock's already really good. It just, again, it typically wins way sooner or loses way sooner by turn 6. So it might very well be too slow, but maybe it just shifts to like make this work. But you know what? I've talked myself down to a B on this one for that reason, but I do think it absolutely can pop up. We have Patches the Pilot, the 1-mana 1/1 Demon Hunter legendary. It's a demon, it's a pirate, and it has Battle Cry. Shuffle 6 parachutes into your deck that summon a 1/1 pirate with charge when drawn. So you get a lot of these. Demon Hunter likes to draw. You just get tokens over time. You can also, I believe, play this in Shaman, which will like this too. Get Shutter Block and shuffle like 18 of them. Seems very good. A lot of pirate synergies going on that really can utilize these tokens. I feel like aggro Demon Hunter is going to be a big force this expansion, and this will be a large part of it. I'm going to give Patches an S. I think both patches we've seen in Hearthstone are both S. We know one is for sure. We'll see if I'm wrong on that one, but I do think it'll be good enough to run. We have Ranger Gilly, the 6-mana 4/6 Hunter legendary. It's the Warrior Tourist. At the end of your turn, get a 2/3 Crocolisk, Death Rattle, give all minions your hand +2/+3, so it's like Wish Upon a Star. You can like Yodeler and get some more buffs. The Croc you get doesn't really do anything, it's just stats. And this does allow you to play warrior cards, which, looking at the warrior cards, they're not amazing. I think it's one of the worst sets out there this set, and I don't know what Hunter's going to do with that much, other than maybe some of the hand buff shenanigans. And the card draw card in particular, the Menagerie card draw card, does seem very good. I will give it an A, but it's probably the worst of the tourist cards. But I still think you're going to be wanting to play warrior cards, and you know, the hand buff stuff, you might take advantage of it, you might not, but it's just kind of, it might just be your Baku or your Gen that you just don't really want to drop. We'll have to see, but again, the effect might be better than it looks. We have Rayla the Sand Sculptor, a 4-mana 2/5 Magent legendary. It's the Paladin Tourist. After you cast a spell, summon a random 2-cost minion and give it Divine Shield. It's like Vexcrow back in the day, except it gets Divine Shield. You can also play Paladin cards. So like some kind of tempo mage deck. It doesn't work in spell mage because this isn't a spell. And you get to play Paladin, which has a lot of buffs going on. And mage doesn't really like buffing their minions that much. So again, probably on the lower end of the tourist cards, where I'm not entirely sure mage is going to want to play that many Paladin cards. I don't think you want to play this card just on its own. Like, you're not playing that much for tempo, and Yeah, I'll put it down with the Hunter one a bit lower, but again, I think all these tourist cards have a shot. We have Sankazel, 5 mana, 3/8 elemental paladin legendary. It has rush. After this attacks, turning to a location. So the location of this minion share the same stats. They'll have the same durability. They'll have the same attack buff. So as you see, it says give a friendly minion +3 attack on this. If this has been hand buffed to like 8 attack, it'll give a minion 8 attack, and then it's like this really hard to kill thing that you can use to constantly buff your stuff. It is important to note, after you've used the location the first time and then like attacked in with that rush minion again and it comes back, then you have to wait 2 turns to use that location. It does follow those the location rules, but still insanely good card. Has such high health to start out, and we know how good hand buffing is. It's gonna be like an impossible to kill minion that's constantly buffing your other minions. I'm giving this an S. I think it is one of the best cards in the entire expansion. We have Sasquatch, a 7 mana, 4/5 Hunter legendary, battle cry, repeat each card you play last turn. It's also a beast, so that's pretty relevant for Hunter. Got some egg shenanigans possibly, but I see this just looking really scary in Priest, getting more Amenthals or big scams like that of all the cards you played, similar to like the 8 mana Pirate or Dragon that Priest used to have that would copy your opponent's cards. That was pretty good back in the day, and you just get to dictate, you know, when you play this and replay cards. I'm giving this an S too. I think Hunter and Priest can both use this card, and it is a very, very scary one. We have Summoner, Dark Marrow, 4 mana, 4/4 Warlock, Undead, legendary minion death, which is also a Deathlike tourist. Your death rattles trigger twice, which is quite nice. After you play a death rattle minion, you destroy it. So you immediately double proc your death rattle. You will kill it, but you can build around that. That could be really nice. And Deathlike cards have some pretty good death rattles. You can play the attack buffer we looked at earlier. There's always that. And it lets you play Deathlike cards, which look pretty strong in the set. He will get an A as well, or she, whoever they are. I'll give them an A. Another very strong legendary. Sunsapper Lanessa, the rogue tourist, paladin legendary, 5 mana, 2/6. Your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. The spell that deals 2 damage and gives you a coin, I think, just breaks this card right away. It's like an OTK enabler. You get 2 coins, you get those coins give you 2 mana each, and then you can do whatever you want. It's gonna feel very non-paladin. It's gonna feel very rogue. The things that this can enable, you can play rogue cards in general, which can be really good, particularly the 3 mana pirates that can, like, you know, increase your weapons and just do gross stuff. This is an S tier one where the ability on the card looks to me like it could also just be a win condition on its own and do really gross stuff. So another very strong legendary. We have the Rye Cleaver, 7 mana, 4/2 weapon, 4 warrior, battle crying death rattle. You get a slice of bread. Get 2 to sandwich any minions in between. You basically, it'll spawn on the right. You get a couple cards in between. You break your weapon. It creates a sandwich. You can cheat a bunch of mana with a bunch of stats. Pretty cool with like taunts in general now that you have the druid cards that can be like resurrected by them. That's quite nice, but seems very slow, not easy to reliably set up. It's amazing flavor, but I gotta give the Rye Cleaver a low C. I don't think you could get away playing with that card in a competitive format, but it is a really cool card. And then we have Treasure Hunter Eudora, the 6 mana 4/5 rogue legendary. Battle cry, go on a side quest to discover amazing loot. Play 3 cards from other classes to complete it, so you get the side quest going. All you gotta do is play 3 other cards from another quest, and then you get to like discover 2 duels treasures, which can be very powerful. But you gotta play 6 mana 4/5. You gotta play cards from the other class, and duels treasures don't really win the game. Rogue just cheats ability mana, does crazy other stuff. I don't see this being a competitive card, but again, the flavor is amazing. I will give it a C. Maybe I'm overrating stuff, but by far the most cards I've ever given an S and an A in one tier list. The set to me looks incredibly powerful, and even like the support cards, the mana cheat cards, the aggressive cards look crazy. Control cards, not really a thing. This set looks like it's going to be very scammy, very aggressive, but let me know what you guys think about my tier list in the comments down below. Make sure to share your own. The template again down there in the description. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.